Read the ticket, a journey from lack to the feast of the covenant, in loving memory of his earthly Abba, father in Hebrew. A story by the late William Brooks Sr., retold through the awakened eyes of William Brooks Jr. The Weight of a Dream. In a world where the sun seemed to rise only to mock the weary, there lived a man named Zeke. His home was a crumbling shack on the edge of a dusty town, where the wind carried the scent of despair and the soil yielded little but struggle. Zeke's hands were rough as the earth he toiled, his back bowed from years of hauling crates, digging ditches, and mending what little he owned. Each day was a battle, sunrise to sunset, scraping by on wages that barely kept hunger at bay. His meals were sparse, a crust of stale bread, a thin soup that did little to warm the hollow ache in his chest. Yet deep within Zeke's soul flickered a stubborn spark, a longing for something more, a life beyond the gray grind of survival. Zeke had heard tales of a grand cruise, an annual special that promised 10 days of escape aboard a ship called the Eternal Promise. The ticket was discounted, they said, a rare chance for even the poorest to taste freedom. But for Zeke, the price was a mountain. It demanded every coin he could spare, every comfort he could forgo. For 5 relentless years he sacrificed. He mended his threadbare coat instead of buying a new one. He walked miles in boots, with soles worn thin, ignoring the bite of sharp stones. He skipped meals, though his stomach growled like a caged beast. He lit no second candle at night, letting darkness cloak his loneliness. Every penny saved was a step toward that ticket, a fragile slip of hope, a dream he could hold in his hands. At last the day came. Zeke stood in the dim light of his shack, clutching the gold-embossed ticket, its edges crisp despite his trembling fingers. The Eternal Promise, Annual Cruise Special. The words felt like a promise whispered by the wind. With his remaining coins, he bought a small brick of cheese and a pack of dry crackers, enough, he calculated, to sustain him through the 10-day voyage. He packed them carefully in a worn satchel, alongside a single change of clothes and a tattered journal where he'd scrawled his hopes over the years. As he boarded the ship, his heart thrummed with cautious wonder, but a shadow of doubt lingered. What if this isn't for me? He thought, gripping his satchel as he stepped onto the polished deck. The ship of wonders, the Eternal Promise, was a marvel beyond Zeke's wildest imaginings. Its towering masts reached for the heavens, sails billowing like the wings of some great bird. The deck gleamed under the sun, its wood polished to a mirror's shine, reflecting the endless blue of the sea. Chandeliers hung in the grand halls, casting rainbows that danced across marble floors. The air was alive with the scent of fresh-baked bread, roasted meats, and exotic spices. Aromas that stirred memories Zeke didn't know he had, of a childhood long buried under years of want. Passengers moved with an ease he'd never known, their laughter ringing like bells, their silken clothes whispering of lives unburdened by scarcity. Zeke, in his patched coat and scuffed boots, felt like a ghost among them. He found a quiet corner on the lower deck, near a rusted railing where the sea's spray kissed his face. From there, he watched. He saw families gather, their voices warm with stories of far-off places. He saw lovers dance under the stars, their steps light as if the world held no weight. And he saw the grand buffet hall, its doors flung wide, revealing a sight that stole his breath. Tables stretching beyond sight, laden with golden loaves, glistening fruits, platters of steaming dishes, and desserts that shimmered like jewels. Music floated from within, a melody so rich it seemed to wrap the soul in an embrace. promising rest, joy, connection. But Zeke never crossed the threshold. "That's not for me," he told himself, his heart sinking under the weight of assumption. "That feast is for them, the fortunate, the worthy." He imagined the buffet carried a price far beyond his means, a luxury not covered by his discounted ticket. So, he stayed in his corner, unwrapping his cheese and crackers with ritual care, rationing each bite as if it were his last. He nibbled slowly, savoring the faint saltiness while his eyes lingered on the golden light spilling from the hall. His stomach growled, but his soul hungered more, for the laughter, the warmth, the sense of belonging he saw in others, the hunger within. Days passed, each one blending into the next. The sea stretched endless, its waves whispering secrets Zeke couldn't decipher. He watched the passengers with a mix of envy and awe. A young girl ran past, her laughter bright as she clutched a plate piled high with food. An elderly couple shared a glass of wine, their eyes crinkling with shared memories. A man in a fine suit raised a toast, his voice carrying over the deck. To life, to abundance, to the promise that brought us here. Zeke turned away, his fingers tracing the edges of his crackers. What promise? He wondered. Not mine. By the fifth day, his cheese was half gone, his crackers dwindling. He began to eat less, stretching his rations, though hunger gnawed at him like a relentless tide. At night, he lay on his narrow cot in the ship's lowest cabin, listening to the creak of the hull and the distant hum of music from above. He dreamed of the buffet, tables overflowing, hands reaching for him, voices calling his name. But each morning he woke to the same reality, a corner, a crumb, a longing he couldn't name. On the eighth day, Zeke's heart grew heavy. The sea, once a symbol of freedom, now felt like a mirror of his isolation. He sat by his railing, the wind sharp against his face, and stared at his final sliver of cheese. It was no bigger than his thumb, wrapped carefully in a scrap of cloth. The crackers were nearly gone, a handful of crumbs at the bottom of his satchel. He weighed his choice: eat now and face tomorrow empty-handed, or save it and endure the ache a little longer. Tears pricked his eyes, not just for the hunger in his body, but for the deeper hunger in his soul, a yearning for a life he'd glimpsed but never touched. He thought of his years of sacrifice, the dreams he'd poured into that ticket. Had it all been for nothing? Had he been foolish to hope for more? The scent of the buffet drifted to him, carried by the breeze, warm bread, sweet fruit, the promise of plenty. His chest tightened, and a sob escaped him, quiet but raw. He buried his face in his hands, the weight of his loneliness pressing down like the sea itself. The stranger's voice. It was then that a figure appeared, stepping softly into the dim light of Zeke's corner. He was an older man, his face weathered but kind, his eyes holding a depth that seemed to see beyond the surface of things. His presence was steady, like an oak rooted against the storm, and his voice carried a warmth that cut through the chill of Zeke's despair. "Do you still have your ticket, Zeke?" he asked. Zeke froze. How did this stranger know his name? His hands trembled as he reached into his coat, pulling out the worn ticket stub, its edges frayed from countless moments of clutching it for reassurance. He handed it over, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and curiosity. The stranger held the ticket to the fading light, his fingers tracing the gold-embossed words. Then, with a voice that seemed to echo with the weight of eternity, he read aloud, "Congratulations on purchasing our annual cruise special aboard the Eternal Promise. Welcome to a journey of restoration. Be sure to enjoy our 24-hour buffet, our nightly gatherings, our music and fellowship, all the provisions of this ship, compliments of your purchase. The words landed like a thunderclap, shaking the foundations of Zeke's world. His breath caught, his vision blurring with tears. The buffet, the overflowing tables, the music, the laughter, the life was his. The gatherings, the joy, the abundance, it was all included in the ticket he'd carried so tightly, yet never fully read. He'd starved not because he lacked, but because he hadn't known what was promised. Tears streamed down his face, hot and unstoppable, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of awakening, of a joy so fierce it felt like fire in his chest, burning away years of doubt and deprivation. The stranger placed a hand on Zeke's shoulder, his touch steadying, like an anchor in a storm. "You were never meant to sit in lack," he said, his voice soft but resonant, like a melody that had always been playing, waiting for Zeke to hear it. "Go. The feast is waiting. It's always been yours." Zeke rose, his legs unsteady but his heart ablaze. The deck seemed to hum beneath his feet, the sea whispering a new song, one of welcome, of belonging. He walked toward the buffet hall, each step shedding the weight of years spent in shadows. The doors loomed before him, golden and wide, and as he crossed the threshold, the light within enveloped him. The air was thick with the scent of life, warm bread, ripe fruit, honey, hope. Passengers turned, not with judgment, but with smiles, as if they'd been waiting for him all along. A woman pressed a plate into his hands, her eyes kind. A man clapped him on the back, his laugh warm. The music swelled, wrapping Zeke in an embrace that felt like home. He filled his plate, not with greed, but with reverence. Each bite was a revelation, flavors bursting, filling not just his body, but his soul. He ate, he laughed, he joined the dance, his patched coat forgotten in the glow of belonging. Tears fell as he moved through the hall, not of lack, but of a peace so profound it saturated his very being. He was no longer a shadow. He was part of the feast, part of the promise, in the soul's awakening. This is the story that William Brooks Sr. told his son when he was a boy, a parable woven from the depths of a father's heart, both a warning and a beacon for those who hunger for more. He spoke of Zeke with fire in his eyes, as if he had walked that deck himself, as if he had tasted both the crumbs and the feast. Now, through the son's awakened eyes, the tale is retold, not merely as a story, but as a call to the soul, a call to read the ticket that's been carried all along. It wasn't until years later, when the son was awakened to the truth, that he understood something that had been hidden in plain sight. Zeke was no ordinary name. It was the shortened form of Yahasqual, the ancient prophet known to the world as Ezekiel, and his name meant Yahuwah strengthens. That realization struck like thunder. The whole parable had been carrying a name of power, a name of purpose. His father hadn't just told him a story. He had given him a map. The name Zeke was the key all along. This is what religion has done to so many of us. It hands you half a book, a tattered page torn from the truth, and calls it salvation. It sings of a free ride while keeping the map to the feast hidden. You're fed crumbs, watered-down sermons, fleeting emotional highs, half-truths that leave you longing, while the covenant's boundless riches wait, untouched in the beginning. The covenant, starting in Bereshith, Genesis, is no mere contract. It is a love letter from Yahuwah, written in the stars, sealed in the earth, alive in every word. It pulses with identity. You are his. fearfully and wonderfully made, a child of promise. It sings of purpose. You were created to walk in harmony with His commands, to live with intention and strength. It unveils an inheritance so vast, promises of provision, protection, connection, and unshakable love, that it stirs the soul to tears of joy. But they don't want you to start at the beginning. Why? Because if you do, you'll see the lie for what it is. You were never meant to cower in corners, clutching scraps of shame or powerlessness. You were never meant to feel rootless, adrift in a world that calls obedience optional. You were born for the feast, for a life overflowing with the barak, the blessing of a covenant that has always been yours. Religion, when it serves systems over souls, hands you cheese and crackers while hiding the banquet hall. It tells you to survive when you were meant to thrive. A call to your heart. Read the ticket, beloved. Open the book of Genesis. Let its words wash over you like a river, revealing who you are, why you're here, what's been promised. Don't let institutions feed you struggle while hiding your inheritance. Don't let systems sell you survival when the table is set with abundance. The covenant is not a distant dream. It's written plainly, waiting for you to claim it. Picture yourself, like Zeke, standing at the edge of your own corner, clutching what little you've been told is yours. Feel the ache, the hunger, the longing for more. Now imagine the moment you read the ticket, the moment you see the truth, the feast is yours. Imagine stepping into the hall, the light wrapping you in warmth, the voices welcoming you home. Let that image stir your soul. Let it break the chains of doubt. Let it bring tears, not of lack, but of a joy so deep it feels like meeting your Creator for the first time. This is your awakening. The covenant is your birthright, written in the beginning, sealed by Yahuwah's love. Read it, live it, walk into the banquet hall of your life, and never settle for crumbs again. As his father used to say, his voice trembling with conviction, the ticket's in your hand, William. Don't let anyone tell you it's not enough. And now, with his father's ruach echoing in his heart, the son declares, read the ticket, claim the feast, live like it was never taken from you. And when you do, the tears that fall will be tears of happiness, of peace, of a soul finally home. A final word from the covenant itself. You've walked with Zeke. You've felt the hunger, the misunderstanding, the moment of awakening. Now hear the words that Yahuwah spoke to a people just like him, scattered, weeping, unsure if they belonged. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares Yahuwah, plans for peace and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you shall call upon me and walk with me, and I will listen to you. And you shall seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. And I will be found by you, declares Yahuwah, and I shall turn back your captivity. Yahu, Jeremiah 29:11-14. He was never offering you just survival. He was offering return, restoration, the feast. The covenant is not for the perfect. It's for the hungry, the weary, the ones who never knew the buffet was theirs all along. So now, read the ticket. Believe what it says. Seek him with all your heart, and step into the promise that has always had your name on it. This is your eternal promise. The table is set. Don't miss the feast. The feast has always been yours, and even the Gentiles who come to the covenant are welcome to the table.